Welcome to the June 10th, 2025 City of Bloomfield Hills City Commission meeting. Please rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now review the consent agenda. Any questions for or discussion for the items listed?
I just had a question to better understand sort of the budget process, and I noticed that there were some larger negative amounts coming into the end of the fiscal year that we were over budget. Is that a normal sort of, kind of all washes out in the end, or, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me at the moment.
This, with overtime, I'm not sure if this answers your question, but with overtime, the expenditures were more for, I think, command, as opposed to the PSOs that you're talking about, and the PSOs were.
And it's not really specific to that in particular, it's just in general. And there's an R&M vehicle and vehicle maintenance on page 5 of 7. There's 17,000 and 12,000 that are abnormal to the available balance. I was just curious if, what those are, and if that's kind of a normal occurrence that things
It is.
veer out of, into the abnormal and it washes out with other items, or
If it's, as long as it's within the same department. So there's times that some expenditures in the department itself varies, they vary. But as long as it washes out within the same department, then it wouldn't be over budget.
okay, so
So some decisions are made, so Sandra goes through a process of, it's kind of, the budget's kind of a guesstimate, and of what each of these areas would, how much money would cost, so maybe repair vehicles or whatever the case may be. Some of those expenditures are a little bit over, but other expenditures
a bit under.
a little bit under.
Okay.
So we begin to worry when everything's over, and when you look at the overall budget, if it's gonna trend to be over. But we don't worry when it's,
Okay.
we spend a little more, like, for instance, we had a vehicle, I think we replaced an engine in it last year, but we determined it would be beneficial to replace that engine and keep it for a few more years. So that budget, that item, was probably a little bit more money than we thought. But then there's other areas we didn't spend as much. Am I explaining that right, Sandra?
Yes, you are. We don't budget by line item, we budget by department.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if you have to, Brad's point, like with the overtime, that obviously is, as officers come and go and new ones come in, and if we're down or up. But so do you take that into account for the next year? If you're at 174 or something like that, I saw 174, I think it was. That was, and I'm
What
losing
page
it.
are you looking at, please?
407. So will you adjust in next year's budget, or do you stay the same? It all depends on the circumstance?
If you're speaking of personnel in particular, we always budget to full staff. I mean,
Okay.
So whatever full staff expenses would be, that's how we budget for the following year.
Okay, but to Brad's question on, and this is minor, we both all know this, but the miscellaneous expenses, so if that's higher, will you just raise it next year? Do you account for it? No.
We definitely try to, but it is circumstantial, like what made it go over? Was it a one-time expense, or is it something that's gonna,
Ongoing.
continue to trend upward? Yes, we would make, adjust for that the following year.
Doesn't that go into your capital account? If you have excess funds at the end of the year, you just roll that into your capital account?
You mean,
In any of the individual categories, if at the end of the year you have a surplus,
it falls to the fund balance.
right, you then carry that over into the
fund
capital,
balance does, not into the capital, but
general fund?
it falls to the general fund balance, yes.
Okay.
And normally, I wouldn't even think twice about it, but we're coming into the end of the financial year, and so I'm seeing these rather large negative numbers. And you know, we only have one more month to make it right, so, that's why I was
Yeah.
bringing it up.
Yes, and that's very important. So every June, we make sure we do a full analysis of the budget to make sure we're not gonna be over from what was approved. And that was done, and there is a budget amendment, I think it's the last item on the agenda. But you'll see when we get to that item, the general fund is actually gonna be under budget. So there's only one item that really needs to be adjusted. So we're well under budget this
Yeah,
year.
I was just gonna explain, like with overtime, there's always circumstances within the different departments that could be happening. So with the city, with the public safety department, there's all of this work to get the personnel out. And to do that, it affects overtime. So, what we would hope is that everybody's staffed, they're all trained, and now, the chief can look at, what do we spend overtime on? Was it backfilling places because, you know, we didn't have personnel? We do this analysis. And he would also do the analysis on all the different not line items, but different items within the budget, line items within the budget, and then have a meeting with Sandra and I, discuss where it should be. Sandra just doesn't really, I don't think it's her practice to really just throw in another 5% or another this and that. She does, there's some work that goes into it. But as you can see by looking at the budget, things occur, things happen.
Okay, thanks.
Just a little minor, we talked about other things earlier, but on page 6 of 7, there was one thing that jumped. It was just small tools and supplies. What would be that? It jumped to 14,000 almost from 8. Is that a big? You can tell me later. It was just.
I'm sorry, I just don't know which line item.
Oh, at the bottom, like last.
It's with the DPW, I think you're looking
Yep.
at, right? It's the DPW towards about 2/3 of the way down.
Tools and supplies?
Yeah, it jumps from 8 back up to 14,000. Was that just a purchase of some kind? Maybe it was you talked about getting more of a,
I would have to run a
Gun
report to
safety
see
things and
specifically
stuff.
what items they purchased, but it is
It's a-
higher than
it's a
in
minor
the
thing,
previous
but-
year.
yeah, we talked about the bigger things. Any questions for Brian or Amy? No, all set? Okay. May I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda, June 10th, 2025, as presented?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Consent agenda is approved. Public comment. Recognition of citizens in the audience. We will now open the floor to public comments. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council, please step forward, state your name and your address for the record, and please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Chief King, I understand the public safety officer is not here. We're delaying that till next month, the introduction.
Yes, ma'am, you'll be meeting 2 next month.
Okay, great. Commission will now consider the adoption of the water and sewer rate resolutions for increased rates effective July 1st, 2025.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission, Jamie Burton. Sort of, okay. So we're going to walk through pretty rapidly update related to water and sewer rates. Water and sewer rates from your service providers go into effect July 1st. So this is the time we always come back and talk about our system. And this time around, we've got some good news. So I'm going to walk through that pretty quick. This city policy has been to really look at rates not just in a single year and go up and down and left and right, is to really smooth these out and buffer these over time. And Dave and Sandra, we've met quite a few times just working through what do we need to have in the fund balance, how do we work this out And Dave has really done a good job of challenging us to make sure we got those numbers locked in as tight as we can to look at these rates, if that makes sense. So, in the big water projects that associate with the big road projects are kind of over. So, right, so that number is kind of coming down and other things. But the ability to keep absorbing rates, I said this was the same line that was in last year. This year is some continued good news, but we're gonna see here we're absorbing rates, but I mean, at some point, that's not gonna happen, right? At some point, we're gonna hit the floor as to what we're able to do, and we're gonna have to start doing that. But we're not there yet, and I think Dave's got a good plan moving forward as to just keep an eye on that. We had a capital improvement fee. We continue to have areas that you can control, okay, and not the pass-through. And ultimately, what this means, and if you look down at the bottom right corner, I don't have another community that can look at their last 10 years or so and show those kind of percent increase to the average user. I'm gonna say it now, there's no such thing as an average user in water and sewer, right? But nonetheless, I have to compare it to something. You guys have done a really good job in, again, really pushing the road program, which is Dave's baby, into the water and sewer projects, and I think we're doing pretty well here. So these are the elements. We are proposing essentially a 0% increase, but that's being done by a few different movements of where we're taking costs from. The first box on the left, both top water and sewer on the bottom, water and top sewer on the bottom, is what the city charges per gallon. It's not gallon, but so everyone can understand. 1,000 cubic feet doesn't make any sense to even me. I don't get it, but a gallon, right? And then the $8 on that side. Sanitary sewer charges from your service providers, including operations and maintenance, is essentially 100% fixed. Evergreen Farmington pays Detroit a fixed fee. Volumes matter, like as a trend over time, but that's 100% like fixed. Debt service fixed. O&M, most of those are fixed. Water is drifting towards that. It's about 60 to 70% fixed. So when we look for opportunities to reduce the rates, we're trying to focus in on that element because that's fluctual. If it fluctuates, that's weather dependent. I mean, if you can guess the weather for the next 12 months, let's put that, you know what I mean? But we can't. So that's the first to go. And then ultimately we'll start working on the fixed fees, if you will, the fixed fees. So you'll notice a big drop in the CIP for prior debt. If you remember, you sold bonds for water back in the day, those bonds are starting to come off. One of the issues that we said when we went to this rate was when the debt's paid off, we'll take the debt service off, and that's kind of what we're doing now. I would imagine that would fall off here probably in a year. So ultimately, there's the good news. I don't like percents because you look at negative 81%. You know, it's still $20 a person or a quarter. I mean, but I wanted you guys to see where the money was coming. So from a budgeting perspective and from a capital perspective, what these rates will generate, and this number is kind of coming down because we're collecting less, and it works through this chart and through here. So where we're at today, and then our estimated projects that we move forward as we work through. Sometimes we don't get to these, sometimes through your budgeting conversation, sometimes we were able to, if you remember a couple of years ago, we brought forward, Dave went and got the Oakland County grant, you know, so we were doing $100,000 matched. So these are just the estimates that will come through. We don't go out and spend this money without approvals of the city commission, okay? So when there's a project, we still bring them back, but we wanted you to see where we're headed and what might happen in the next year. The biggest of which, if you remember, we went sewer project. The county went through and did a bunch of videotaping, found 4s and 5s, which mean those are bad. And we would put forward a project. We received bids on the first phase of that, and it is under budget. It will be back in July for the recommendation of that award. We need to go through a few more steps before we get there. It just didn't come together fast enough. And we estimate out 2 years, because what we're trying to do is really manage that overall dollar amount. The city does not need $10 million. The city probably needs 3, 4, 5, depending on what we have planned in the future. So we're really trying to gear the bottom line to that, if that makes sense. So what ultimately, the balancing act, if you will. So the water rate, we're passing through some of the increase on the fixed. So the total, okay, so we're increasing the dollar per gallon. That's the top number. A little bit, and that's all passed through, reduced from the city. To offset that, we're decreasing the fixed charges. So ultimately, to the average customer, there's no impact. The sewer rate is opposite. We're decreasing the rate a little bit, and we're increasing the fixed costs. Okay? The waters, that's the debt. Why we're decreasing the MEU charges, because the debt's coming off. If that makes sense. But ultimately, my recommendation for you will continue to be, if there's a place to increase, you increase it on the fixed side, because you should be collecting as close to how you're paying as possible. Otherwise, you absorb that risk. And that risk is you don't collect enough in a summer to pay all your winter bills because they're collecting on 12 equal payments, and it's weather dependent. Okay, it's highly weather dependent. So ultimately, the bottom line is, what ultimately this works out to be is a 0% to the net normal average customer. And how we accomplish that is the city is absorbing those rate increases from your service providers. Again, there's 2 resolutions in your packets prepared by Oakland County. I think we've all looked at them. Convention would be to do one at a time, and I'll be happy. But before that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is getting too easy. Come up here and talk about 1%, 0%, 2%. I think that's administration.
Yeah,
that's
you weren't
Oakland
around
County.
when it was 4 and 5%.
Susan,
That wasn't so easy.
I stood up here in 2003 and recommended a 47% rate increase. So I have been there,
Oh,
and we got no phone calls. Yes,
You
sir.
know, it might be important to talk about is that it's 10 years we've done pretty well, but what is the potential of increases in the future here? Because I think that it might be dangerous to think that there's never going to be these increases. And,
Right.
and I know I pushed you pretty hard on the 0%, but there is some push there. You know, there's considerations with that because if you gotta be careful. If you don't collect enough, we could be. So what's your thought on that moving forward?
Here's what I believe the industry to be. The reason we can absorb it still today is because your part of it, what you're spending, you don't need it as much anymore. You've decreased your parts of the pie, so you can absorb that to a level that supports city functions on water and sewer. Once we get to that point, we have pass-through costs, right? Those pass-through costs are going to be 5 to 7% from Great Lakes Water to Oakland County, and Great Lakes Water directly to Saukwa, and then to you guys, okay? It's inflation. Let's be honest, there will be 5 to 7%. And I don't want to actually talk in terms of rate.
Right.
Let's just talk in terms
Right.
of revenue. How much revenue will you need to collect?
Right.
It's going to probably be in that category of 5 to 7%. I go back to that chart, you can see those categories. So for budgeting, when it was almost all rate back in the day, we used to just kind of, if it was under 5, we made it 5 so that we banked a little bit of money. When it was over 5, we kind of dealt with it. You'll get to a spot where we are going to have to just simply manage the service provider increases, and I would recommend in your heads, keep thinking 5%. The other challenge will be that they are continuing to go for a lot of good reasons, but can be problematic for communities is they're driving the fixed cost. So sewer went to like 100%. When we switched the Evergreen Farmington from a public utility to a Chapter 20 a few years ago, which is a good thing, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but the debt kind of flows through to sense the $200,000 we're going to talk about in a minute. So as projects come through, those don't become, hey, we'll just charge you an extra $1 and we hope we get it. They're passing that through on a percentage basis, a dollar for dollar basis. So I do believe if you water your lawn, if you have a golf course lawn, you should pay more than the guy and gal who's willing to let it brown a little bit, or the families. There should be a differential rate, but it doesn't really cost us any more, any less for more or less water, if that makes sense, right? I always laugh the first gallon costs $1 billion and the rest is free for Detroit because it's really fixed. But again, people should pay if they're going to use more water and stuff. So there'll always be a variable component, but I think, Dave, to your point of what's the prediction, we're going to see those.
I see that happening at some point here.
Yeah.
It's the pass-through increase.
Pass through. Your sewer is 100%. It doesn't matter how much water they monitor the sewage now. They used to do water. Now they monitor the sewage and like they just keep rolling that number and redivvying up that pie, and you get a percentage of that pie for maintenance of the Evergreen Farmington and for debt service on those projects. But remember, the county also took over your ACO where you weren't doing your own projects. They were managing your excess flow. So it's a big relationship, and I think it's going very well. But, I mean, costs are up, volumes are down.
How does this compare to other municipalities?
It's, man, that's a loaded question. So the answer is, I think Bloomfield Hills is doing very, very well as compared to other communities, where you have to start looking at fully irrigated acre-plus lots, 2-acre-plus lots. You look at the landscaping, you look at the things that exist in your homes that don't exist in other. You can't. There's not really there's not a community that really can compare to you. Maybe parts of Bloomfield Township, right? So, but as a rate basis, you guys are doing pretty good. Joining Sockwell was probably the best thing you guys have ever done, because you're now buffered from these wild, their rate, I mean, it might be going up, but remember, you're not paying based on these peak usage of sewer. You're a fixed rate, you're a fixed volume customer through Sockwell, best way to describe it. So that was an excellent idea. So when that happened, you saved, like, you're 20% lower than you would have been on your own with that, and then just working your way back, you know. That gap exists every single year still. It's a gift that keeps on giving.
I guess the last question I have is if our bond debt is almost gone in our community by virtue of being smaller, we're better maintained and more up to date, we should do better than others, right?
So there's multiple components to that. So from a Great Lakes water perspective, how much water are they delivering, right? They don't care that they deliver it through good mains or bad mains or the street, you know, the maintenance is there, right? Or in the sewage is how much sewer do you put through? And you got a lot of your pipes run right next to the river. People don't want the sump pumps. So we've been working on that. It's just an older system. We've cleaned all of that up. It's the best of our abilities, right? And you still have extra flow, and the county has taken that on as you renegotiate the county. Because you have replaced your water mains, and you're not running to failure. We replaced the 6. If they're under the road, we did an analysis. You have stopped. In 2003, the 47% is because your model was run to failure, right? And then figure it out. And we said, nope, we're going to get proactive. And we made one big move in 2003. And since then, we've managed better. Then Dave kicked it into a whole new gear with the roads and that process. And then the county's doing better asset management. So you're doing better because you went to Sockwell, so you have better water functionality, water rate. You're doing better because you've got good pipes. But those just are different buckets, right? And each of those buckets, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't need to talk inflation, but everything's up, right? And depending on when the projects happen, steel, and again, I'm gonna go talk real. Steel valves are not made in Michigan, or made in the USA, right? So next thing you know, if you're bringing iron or you're bringing valves in through Canada, or you're doing steel water main projects, things are impacted right now, and uncertainty has caused some of that issue. So we're working our way the best we can through that. A lot of moving pieces, but I think I'll say, to answer very directly, you guys are doing very, very well. It's my opinion that you guys continue administration-wise to manage this as well as you can.
Yeah. But to your point, we don't need $10 million.
That's why we keep moving the number down.
Yeah.
It's kind of, we don't need $10 million.
So we talk about how much we would need, and so I mean, frankly, I think Sandra's kind of comfortable with a $5-6 million in the bank, and so we kind of follow her guidance on that, because she needs to feel comfortable. A big bill comes in, and so we discuss it every year, but I think that's your
That's
comfort level.
historically where we've been.
Yeah. And we're
For
trying
a
to,
long time, haven't
Yeah.
we, Sandra? If we stay right there.
if we drop it to 7, we've just lost that buffer. Now, next year, we get hit with another half, you know what I mean? So we're trying to soft land those two numbers
Right.
with reducing your rate down
Yes.
in that number.
Yeah.
And sometimes we know that we don't have as much notice as these projects come up. So we're on track to manage that. No, you don't need $10 million. You don't have $10 million. We're not trying to get 10 million. You just keep lowering your part of it, right? You keep paying cash, saving your ratepayers a lot of interest, a lot of debt charges. So you're managing this pretty well. Great, actually.
So you said we need 2 motions?
Typically, that's what we've done in the past.
Sewer and water.
So are we ready to hear?
I could make a motion.
Thank you.
For water, I move that we approve and adopt the City of Bloomfield Hills amended water supply rates 2025-2026 resolution in the form provided in our agenda packets for tonight's meeting.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no, nay.
And I can do the sewer one as well, if you like.
Please.
I move that we approve and adopt the City of Bloomfield Hills amended sewage disposal rates 2025, 2026 resolution in the form provided in our agenda packets for tonight's meeting.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Thank you.
It's approved. Can I ask an aside question? Like, you were talking about the the tariffs affecting this, the steel imports, et cetera. Is that gonna affect the culvert project on Woodward and
No, so,
Hickory Grove?
the MDOT project that's gonna come?
Well, yeah, the
So
sewer.
it's possible, but, a lot of like, steel pipe, big steel culverts or other projects that are out there have been here, they're pre-manufactured or whatever. It's just when you get into big ductile iron water main, you get into other pipes that lose it, or valves, for the most part. I think if it's steel, iron, aluminum, valves, they're all kind of in that category of being uncertainty in pricing and figure out. But we're not seeing like this dramatic, crazy 30-40% increases, because a lot of that stuff's been here. But if the MDOT one, yeah, probably, but how much?
And then in the minutes, it mentioned that the Woodward would be closed for several months. And,
You speak to the traffic.
and then, but in the proposal, she said if we chose to close it completely, it would be 3-month closure. So are they just trying to keep the door open? Could be 6 months? I mean,
The Woodward,
yeah,
yeah, so there was, when I did a presentation, there's a couple of different ways that they could have completed this culvert replacement. And the best way, which I think the commission agreed to, was the road would be shut down for about 3 months completely to get it done. Although there would be some closures early on to do some limited lane closures early on, but there would be a complete lane closure for about 3 months. The other options would stretch this out for even a couple of years. And so, I think.
so that first phase is just a couple lanes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
and that adds up to the several months. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
Great, thank you for clarifying. We still need to do this.
Yes.
The commission will consider the agreement for the contract extension with Oakland County Equalization for assessing services.
Thank you, Mayor. So, the county has changed their fees for equalization. The impact on the city, we believe, our analysis is about $20,000 for a year. And we informed the commission of that, I believe, last month. And since that time, the county has offered an extension with the current rates, and they have only offered that for 2 months. And so I think our message to the commission last time was that we should look into if there's other services that could provide, or other entities that could provide that service for us. And what our plan was to do is to compare and contrast that to what the cost is with the county. We don't know if the extra $20,000 is a good deal or not, but we need some time to do some analysis on that. So we would ask, we're recommending that we take that extension with them. We have tax season coming up, and we don't want to throw a wrench into the works here. We want to keep services going, and then do some analysis, come back to the commission prior to August 31st, and then we'll see what the commission wants us to do. We hope to have some options. We actually don't know many options right now, but we will look into it.
Okay. So you want this will take us through August 30th, right?
Yes.
31st. And then meanwhile, that makes you look in to see other people who do this, right?
Yes.
When's the last time they raised this on us? Do you remember? Do you know?
Our last contract, we had an increase, but certainly not 40-some percent. I believe it was 5% in a year.
That's what I thought. They usually raise it like 5% or something. This is a huge increase.
Correct.
I think it's 47%?
Yeah,
Aren't all the
40,
municipalities complaining about this?
Yes, there's many. I think that what prompted the extension offer, because some communities may not be able to afford it. They have much, I think the cost to each property address or property number is the same cost, and so there are denser communities that have to pay this increased cost. It's the same cost per lot, so we have less density here. And that's why I made the comment that it's $20,000. That doesn't mean that we're just gonna roll over,
Yeah.
but it might be a reasonable thing for us to continue on.
Is there any collaborative effort to push back?
There was some pushback on it, and we, yeah, there was quite a bit of pushback, but we feel like we don't know the answers yet, so we didn't, there's, the pushback's futile. It was kind of, to be honest with you, it was kind of like a Plant Moran thing with us. when we
Yeah.
did the-
Right.
That was very analogous to that, and so they were not interested in the small communities, and the county was interested in increasing their rates, and we weren't changing their mind. Either was a large majority of the county.
Okay.
Okay, may I hear a motion to approve the contract extension with Oakland County Equalization for assessing services as presented?
I make a move that we approve the First Amendment to the contract for Oakland County Equalization Division Assistance for Real Estate and Personal Property Assessment Administration Services with the City of Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and further direct our city manager, David Hendrickson, to execute said First Amendment on behalf of the city and deliver it to David Woodward, chairperson of the Oakland County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Great. Yes. The commission will now consider the adoption of resolution to authorize prepayment of the Bloomfield Hills portion of the Evergreen Farmington Drain Project.
I can speak to that.
Oh, thank
although-
you, Sandra.
Yep, Jamie already mentioned it, that we're being assessed by the Water Resource Commission's office, this time for $201,600. They are offering us to either prepay it or to pay it over 20 years at 2.5%. So, as we mentioned, our fund balance is quite healthy, and so we're recommending to prepay it. That would save us about $58,000 in interest.
Okay.
Just a question, Sandra, was it 2.5%, was that
That's the
The rate?
interest this time, yes.
and do you feel that the money would do better invested than 2.5, or?
I understand that point. When I think about a 20-year making payments on it for 20 years, just the administration portion of it, keeping track of it, I'm not sure that it would be,
Really worth it?
worth it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Can we
That's
invest
my
that kind of,
opinion.
can we invest that fund?
We do, actually, yes.
Yeah, we do.
With Oakland County, investment pool,
Mm-hmm.
so there's a portion of it, yes.
Hmm.
So we already do invest quite a bit, of that water and sewer funds, but I think over a 20-year period, just to keep that on the books
Yeah.
would be, quite.
Okay.
How long does the sanitary drain project take place, and when would the monies be owed?
We have to, commit to it, by the end of June, and then I think it has to be paid by August.
But the project itself takes how long?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure how long it's gonna take them.
This is part of like $100 million bond in multiple projects, and they haven't bid all the phases yet, but none are happening within the 4 lines of Bloomfield Hills. So
Right,
this
no.
is for other areas.
Yeah, I think this specific project should take a year to construct.
I guess my only question is, why would we pay when it
Yeah,
hasn't
why
even
are we-
started?
Yeah,
They need to, secure their bonds, so.
A
they're-
commitment from us doesn't secure the bond?
Oh, you mean, why do they need the funds?
Right, if we
versus
commit to
just
pay
commitment?
in
and then they get
advance,
to hang on to our money all.
doesn't that,
So, I'll try to answer this, Mark might jump in too. So, under the drain code, they have to leverage, there is no big pot of money under the drain code. Drain codes are pay as you go to the sanitary district. There's some money at the county, but that's the bottom line. So, they can't start bond proceedings until they have a number of how much bonds they're gonna sell, because they don't sell any more than they have to Some of the projects are up, I mean, there's money being spent on this all the time. So it is more, if you say you're gonna do it, then you back down. What if someone who owes 20 or 100 million does that, then the whole bond sale blows up and the whole project gets pushed back. So it's more under the drain code than it is anywhere else, which it just enables this process. And you've gotta go to this step, and then you can go to this step, and typically they require that commitment up front. Because otherwise, if you committed and backed out, if you were 24% of this and you backed up, you said I'm gonna pay it, and you didn't, you're really, that causes a whole lot of problems for the overall project. It's kind of like a special assessment district for you. If someone says I'm gonna prepay and then doesn't, then you didn't have enough money.
Right, I guess my only question is if you could, I mean, businesses would commonly post a letter of credit. We've got great rating here in the city of Bloomfield Hills. It is, you know, it's collectible. I'm just wondering why we part with the cash and they don't start for a while, that's all.
Well, I guess the converse would be if we don't prepay it, we'd still be assessed that amount every year, whether they've begun or not. So they're gonna get at least part of the money. And I think part of the function for getting the commitment early is that they can plan then for their costs that they'll need for the borrowing costs. So if they have a significant number prepaying, they're not gonna have the funds available to pay the interest costs in the future. So they need to plan for that.
The last thing, they're not starting from zero with an estimate. These projects are designed, these projects have been permitted, they've been spec'd, some of them have been, it's been bid. So long story short, there is costs incurred when they usually revolving fund it. In the drain code, you usually start a project and then you kind of short-term loan the project to get through like bidding, and then you go through the apportionment process, which happened actually a couple of years ago. Get to the apportionment process, then you have a project, and then you put it out, and anyone prepays or not included in that, then you go borrow the money. So it's a different process. Under the drain code, it's very spelled out. I get this question outside of like how we drain, like stormwater drain projects and sanitary projects. And the answer is there's been costs incurred, just not the 100 million, because that's all mostly construction. They probably owe themselves probably 3-4 million by now. So there's money, and the assessments would start this fall. I think the first one would be due this fall or next spring. So it's a better way to do it for the district. It just changes the procedure a little bit.
Well, we don't have a choice, though. Nobody has a choice, right? Everybody's gonna have to pay.
Everybody's gonna have to pay, it's just how you're gonna pay it up front in a lump sum or finance it. You are part of the system, part of the chapter 20 drain. I think the percent is, was 1.44.
This project is 1.7%.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
so
that's
that's all
what-
we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1% of the overall district. And this project part is whatever the first part of this is do the math, it's $201,000. You don't have a choice, you have a voice, and you go to the drainage board, you can push against these projects, but Eagle's coming after the county, it would be coming after you for not meeting your obligations on your capacity outlet. They're handling it for you. It's a very fair, I think you're being treated very, very fair, and the process of payment, I understand that completely. I go, when residents get assessed, I have to show up and be like, we're gonna start assessments, we haven't put a shovel in the ground yet. That's how it feels, but it's part of that process, and ultimately, they have to have the money. I know you're collectible, I get it all, but then we need an agreement. I mean, it just makes more sense to do it this way. And with your fund balance, $200,000, we pay on the last day, Sandra.
What's our fund balance? Remind me, what's the fund balance again? $6 million. It's coming out of $6 million?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Brad, are you okay with the, because if you can invest the money at 5%, I see your point.
I forgot, I didn't realize it was a 20-year term. That makes a lot of, because that's a lot of interest building up over the years. So I think it makes a lot of sense just to prepay it, be done with it.
Okay. Okay.
Any other discussion? Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution to prepay our portion of the green project?
Whereas the city of Bloomfield Hills is required to pay $201,600 as its portion of the cost of work, which will soon commence on the Walnut Lake No. 1 Corrective Action Plan project related to the Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drainage District as required by an administrative consent order from the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy to eliminate excessive sewer overflows into the Rouge River, and whereas prepayment of the full $201,600 due will save the city $58,560 in interest charges, and said prepayment will not negatively impact the city's water and sewer fund balance. Therefore, I hereby move that we approve the resolution included in our packet for tonight's meeting, in our agenda packet for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Passed, thank you. Commission will now hear a presentation from Chief King on the Department of Safety Protocol for the coyote complaints.
I like your disclaimer. We supposed to read that?
No, you weren't. Already messed up, so.
Right.
Yeah, from beginning.
Okay. Good evening. We're here to talk about a longstanding issue in the city of Bloomfield Hills, and it has to do with our coyotes in our community. I do want to get my disclaimer out there that I'm going to attempt to cover as much qualitative information as possible, be efficient as possible. I'm on a timeline, so I will try to comply with that. But I want to get this information to the commission, and I apologize for any information that is redundant. So with that, hopefully, no. Okay. Obviously, our primary concern is to maintain the safety of our community. But we also have to consider the quality of life of our community. And we wanted to provide a comprehensive look at where we were, where we are today, and some options moving forward. And we wanted to include as many known or possible issues or concerns, because we do feel if it's predictable, it's preventable. So the focus of maintaining the safety of our residents and guests while sustaining the community as we know it. I want to look at what our community is, the history and current responses of our public safety department. We'll look at last year's public safety data, and the intent of that is to correctly define the impact on our community as it is right now, which should be the main factor in determining our response. We're going to cover some resources based on scientific data and successful practical experiences. They're going to include prevention efforts, hazing measures, trapping practices. Then we're going to get to a couple recommendations that I have to conceivably improve our response program and prepare us for future issues. And then finally, and most importantly, we want to seek the input of the commission and see what kind of direction the commission wants us to move forward on this. So our community, what makes the city of Bloomfield Hills so attractive to our residents is exactly what attracts and sustains coyotes. Our woodlands, our large residential lots, our reduced population density, open water sources, natural wildlife, and food sources. Adding to that, the human activity that contributes to that. I'm talking about our garbage, compost barrels, gardens, fruit that falls from our trees, bird feeders, feral cats, and then also the traffic that results in roadkill every once in a while. And then what steps are reasonable, appropriate, and acceptable for us based on this information, and then the current impacts on our community. We are interested in following the recommendations from the two leading authorities on this topic, which is Michigan DNR and the U.S. Humane Society. And then when we start analyzing this stuff, we want to look at what food sources are we ready to eliminate. Are we willing to eliminate access to our open water sources, what level of audible and visual deterrence are we willing to accept? What kind of physical barriers do we want to accept? What kind of reduction of our woodlands do we want to accept? Do we want to stop feeding our animals outdoors, or do we want to start taking our animals, or stop taking our animals outdoors at night? And so just to kind of level set that, for reference, a lot of these recommendations are pretty reasonable, but there's some that I'm just opposed to, absolutely opposed to. And two of them are, they advise that a person should never run away from a menacing coyote. I'm not going to stand here and tell anyone that if a coyote is menacing you, you should not run away. I'm just not going to do that. For perspective, they also recommend that you clean your barbecue grill every time you use it. And when you're done cleaning it, you take it and store it inside your garage or home. I'm not willing to do that either. So that's kind of where we're at. Our history of response from the Public Safety Department, as a law enforcement officer for 30 years, this was a little bit shocking to me. So our old targeted elimination program, which we had up until 2013, included a fatal hunting strategy, where it included a highly skilled and trained sniper, public safety officer, with a .308 rifle. And for any of you that are into firearms or hunting, that's a massive round to be firing in a public or in a populated area, was to lure the coyote, the area identified as a problem, with a mechanical lure, which was a rabbit, I believe, and to position themselves in concealment and shoot the coyote. We have one recorded discharged round in that time, which produced a unsuccessful hit and not a targeted coyote. So when I looked at that, completely ineffective and dangerous, and we talked about targeted elimination programs and a lot of research, and every day is a learning day, and I've learned a lot about coyotes and some elimination programs in the past that have been tried across our nation, worldwide, actually. So this is an ineffective and dangerous practice. We only discharge a firearm when someone's life is in danger. Someone's life is in danger, our own, someone else's, even a pet. We maintain that ability to defend our persons and our property. And this just is not a good idea in my assessment. Highly dangerous, extremely liable, resource intense, having to certify that officer, having to have that officer train in the staff time, it just is not the right move for us. And a little bit of perspective on that, this is Michigan hunting zones for the DNR. And you'll see below that zone 3 dotted line, it's almost prohibited below that dotted line. And the population, or the reason behind it, is it's population dense, and the propensity for overpenetration and unintended secondary impacts. A .308 round, just looking at that, even a .223, something, you have a 75 to 150 grain round traveling at 3,000 to 4,000 feet per second. It just doesn't stop. And it just creates such a danger, in addition to it being an ineffective program. And then we talk a little bit more about lethal control programs. They're, the dynamics of these animals, they're extremely territorial. And as I said, I learned a lot about coyote packs, and the dynamics of the pack are quite complex. On our end, it's extremely difficult to identify the offending coyote unless we catch it kind of in the act of what it's doing. We talked about new coyotes replacing the eliminated coyote. Part of that is in the pack hierarchy, the only coyotes that are allowed to reproduce are the alpha male and female. and there's subservient couples that aren't allowed to reproduce, and if you do take out the alpha female or male, that activates that gender to activate with all of the other coyotes, especially the alpha. And what it can do is a typical pack will produce 7 pups a year. You will activate all 7 or 8 females with 7 pups, causing 49 to potentially, or vice versa, the males will all start reproducing with the other females. So they'll reproduce earlier, they'll have larger litters, higher survival rates, and that is the called a coyote reproductive boom. Nationally, large-scale efforts, fatal programs have, over the past 100 years, have resulted in actually the coyote numbers in the U.S., Canada area expanding, increasing. And it is estimated that if a fatal control program was to be enacted, we would have to kill 75% of the coyotes for the next 50 years before it actually reduced the numbers in the way they reproduce and how it would occur. So, going on to our response program today. Our current response program from the Public Safety Department focuses on education and informing the resident, provides informational materials targeted at prevention and safety. Includes a document that we produce, provide to the citizen, and we retain for our records. Our force response at this point is only limited to situations where there's immediate dangers of menacing and attacking. That means a public safety officer was to respond to a situation where an animal was attacking or menacing, we would use the appropriate amount of force to eliminate that threat. In late 2024, we included a informational video where Captain Lockhart interviewed a DNR coyote expert, and in my research, there is no industry standard for a law enforcement agency or public safety agency to respond to a coyote complaint. I have utilized some of my resources, and I can guarantee you this, the Bloomfield Hills Public Safety Department's response program is second to none. No one does what our officers do. In talking to a couple of wildlife experts, they complimented our program, and they could not identify or recommend a single thing for us to do in addition to what we're doing. Our data from last year, we took May of 2024 to May of 2025. We had total of 21 total incidents in that period of time. You'll see on the diagram, 14 incidents in blue involve a coyote sighting only. That means someone saw a coyote and reported it. They were either crossing the street, sunning themselves, running through yards. There were no interactions of any kind. You'll see 3 incidents in orange involved in a technical resident encounter with a coyote. They were either walking in their yard. The coyote was walking in their yard. They came out of their house and the coyote was in their yard. And on immediate sight of the human being, the coyote fled. The next 3 incidents in gray represent I will describe as unusual behavior from the coyote. It involved a human being doing something more than just being seen, having to wave their arms, yell at it, approach the coyote in some way. The coyote looked at them. They looked at the coyote didn't immediately flee. They started to walk towards it, made that noise, waved their arms, the coyote fled. And then we have the one incident, I take that back. In each one of those incidents where there was unusual behavior, and when I say unusual behavior, it's just that it didn't flee upon sight, there was a small animal or prey item either alive or actively involved. Going to those 3 incidents, individuals were walking down the street. They didn't understand why the coyote was approaching them. The coyote, when we ran into the street, got a small carcass that was killed by a car, run over by a car, squirrel, rabbit, whatever it was, got it, and then fled back into the woods. It was after the food source. So there was always there was a small dog on a leash, and the dog, there was no type of approach or anything like that. Another consistency in all three of those incidents, they were very heavily wooded areas. There was no contact between the human, no injury, and then there was no live animal contact or injury. The only one that really suffered was the animal that was already dead in the road that got scavenged by the coyote. We have one known attack that's in yellow. It occurred on May 7th, reported on May 15th of this year. A summary was it was an unmonitored animal, let out just before dark. The attack was not witnessed. Bite marks on the neck and rear leg were treated by a vet. And just prior to the dog, or the homeowner saw the dog chasing a rabbit into a wooded area before the attack. The homeowner left the dog out for some period of time, got the dog back at the door, panicked. The dog was attacked by something, came in the house, took it to the vet. The vet identified it as being bitten by a coyote. We are still waiting for additional information from the vet to confirm that. This is just all word of mouth from the owner at this time. Kind of expand that out a little bit, 2014 to 2024, our data shows that we had a total of 74 calls for service involving these type of incidents. Average of about 4.5 per year. Interesting, there were no coyote complaints in 16 or 17. So that year, for whatever reason, we have nothing captured for that year. Like I said, that average 2024 was the highest year at 25. Year-to-date 2024 was 25 incidents. Year-to-date for 2025, we've had 5 incidents. So physical deterrence. These are pretty standard, these recommendations. The following safety measures are, like I said, universally recognized by the subject matter experts. And again, these are provided as options for consideration and discussion only. I'm not recommending this. You have like a coyote-proof fence. That's what they recommend. It's 6 feet tall. It's buried into the ground, 18 inches on both sides as a skirt to prevent them digging. And then you have to apply a roller to the top of the fence because, didn't know this, but coyotes will climb a fence. The recommendations are to secure any potential shelters or den areas, secure areas under decks, sheds, enclosed crawl spaces, things like that. We actually found one den in a residence outer deck. They have 3 decks in there on their property. They had like a small deck by a shed in the back of their property, and that was where the coyote den was, under that deck. Keep pets indoors at all times. Supervise them closely when outside, especially at dusk, dawn, or night. Some hazing techniques. Hazing techniques include yelling, waving your arms, making loud noises to scare them away. Whistles, air horns, other devices make loud noises. Night eyes, a system of remote triggered eyes that mimic predators' eyes around your property that they will sense and they will flee from. Projectiles, throw objects at them. Obviously, tennis balls, rocks, things like that. Motion-activated lights and sprinkler systems that are for sale. They also recommend repellents. Ammonia, mothballs, vinegar, and pepper. And this was interesting. Place human-scented items around the perimeter of your property. Old socks, clothes, soaps, water, things like that. Yeah, I found that interesting. I don't know if that's what homeowners want to do. And then we go to trapping. So what you see up here is 4 different kinds of traps. A neck snare, a leg hold, which is the lower left-hand corner, and then a live cage. It is allowed in our city. Sorry, I'm trying to track the scroll down here. It's allowed in our city. It depends on the type of trap. Only live traps. Sorry, bouncing bouncing back and forth. Only live traps can be done. They have to come in and get a permit. I have to approve them. That's in our ordinance. The thing about trapping is it's a civil process between the homeowner. It's got to be on private property. The homeowner is responsible for any kind of liability, costs, damages. And everything I read about snares and know about snares is they're indiscriminate. They don't discriminate against coyotes or wildlife, rabbits, your personal dogs, children running in the area, public safety officers going through the wooded areas. They're just indiscriminate. They don't care who is walking in that area. If it can attach or do its job, it will do that. And that's a concern for me. So then recommendations. There's a couple here. Public engagement. We can have an annual information town hall and then include that information on our website. Talk about deterrence, protective measures, the noisemakers, the strobes, things that individuals can do for themselves. Another option is city ordinance prohibiting wildlife feeding. I understand that comes with potential consequences we may not be willing, or we may not be intending, and then specifically it's would include feeding any and all wildlife, like our bird feeders and things like that. I know that there are residents that I've met that are very adamant on a feral cat population here and managing that feral cat population. Again, those are all things that attract these animals. And lastly, it is called the Southeast Michigan Deer Coalition Committee. It's from my old stomping grounds of Farmington Hills. Reached out to them. They are entering into this program, and it's a tiered program over several years. And they're starting with a cull for deer. Their target is solely deer. And I can answer some questions if you want some more information about that, what that committee plan is and how it's going to evolve over the next 4 or 5 years. But the intent of that committee is to evolve to all problematic wildlife. Their next focus are geese and then coyotes in years to come. They're focused on this 3 to 5 year mission for deer. In those communities, they're looking for expanded communities. I think they're at 3 right now, Farmington Hills, and Southfield. They're looking at trying to get another 21 communities to sign on to this. Starts with a call by the DNR, paid for to the tune of $20,000 per year for 2 years. Then it cycles to limited bow hunting by licensed certified police officers on their own time. And then the target is, or the hope is, to go into limited licensed hunting bow style open to the public. And I'm not 100% on that either. So that is their program. So with that, I am open for questions and.
That group that you mentioned, so
Yes, ma'am.
they're hunting, you had talked about how you didn't recommend hunting in our
Yes.
area. They're hunting though with guns and bows and things on people's property?
Actually, the program entails professional marksmen from the DNR, and they have a process to use firearms in a specific manner, which, again, I'm not.
On people's property
Yes, ma'am.
and near people's property?
Yes, ma'am. And their targeted species is deer. There are a lot of things that deer do that coyotes, a lot of problems the deer present that coyotes just don't present. There are many car deer accidents. Deer will go out in front of a car and get hit by a car. They're large animals. I've maybe seen 2 coyotes hit by a car in my 31 years experience. Coyotes are a little bit more savvy. They're more
Wily.
wily. Yes. but they don't present the dangers. In Farmington Hills, a deer came through the windshield and killed a woman, in an accident. They present a different, set of problems. So they're looking at that. They have about 1,100 deer in Farmington Hills, that area. They're looking to get 75.
All in, 75 deer?
75 deer with this first call. They are hoping to get 75. Most likely, they say they will get anywhere from 25 to 50.
That's all.
Yes, ma'am.
So in
20
2 years or 3 years?
1 year, 20
Right,
grand.
I'm saying collectively, they're gonna get
That
not
is,
even 200.
no, ma'am,
So
no.
What are you doing?
So,
$20,000 a year? That's an expensive deer.
the DNR is their program is professional. They've talked about, I've actually talked to some of them. It is a very challenging program. They're constantly, they do it under the cloak of night. It's all at night. It's all done during dark hours. Night vision, FLIR scopes, there's protests involved. We don't, yeah.
Yeah, we're not going there.
Yeah.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Yes, ma'am.
If you said you have a flyer, or maybe we could make a flyer for the city, event in September? Could we just have a stack of them, what to do if a coyote comes to you?
We already have a document that the Public Safety Department provides.
That's what I was thinking,
and-
could we just have those in a stack at?
Well, you
that
have
We-
that document
we
as
have
a
the
little
document.
checklist. Like,
Online.
no,
Yep.
I think she's thinking of something a little bit more,
Comprehensive?
yeah,
Okay.
colorful. And I mean, you named some things I didn't know about, like mothballs. I'm stopping on my way home from work. I
And
mean,
you talked very quickly about all the
Yeah.
solutions. Can you go
Yep.
through that one more time?
Okay.
Yeah.
Deterrence?
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay. There you go. So the idea behind these they're very skittish and they do not want any competition. They don't want any direct contact with human beings.
so that's why the human.
That's what again, I know that I've had discussions with a lot of community members, and they don't see it the way that I see it a lot of times. And again, I'm not willing to tell someone, don't run away from one of these things if it's growling at you and charging at you. I wouldn't, but I'm just different, It might get me bit. I don't know. But those recommendations, I'm not willing to extend. But some of these, are we willing to put fences up in our yards?
No, the 6-foot fence is silly, but there were some unique things that. like,
They're the noisemakers. There's automated sprinkler systems that you can buy
Yeah.
to some great extent. And what it does is it senses movement and it turns the sprinkler on.
Night, everything. Yeah.
Our officers will get sprayed if they're out checking alarms at the middle of the night.
Yeah,
but,
I
you
don't want that.
But so everything is a cost benefit. You want to look at everything as a cost
So
benefit.
you said I didn't catch the mothball thing.
Anything with scent. They talk about, I think it was pepper, ammonia, anything that has human scent. They are, like you said, they're pretty wily, and they are savvy. They know what they're doing. They smell. Their senses are greater than ours. They know we're out there before we know they're out there. And so they literally said, putting items around the perimeter like dirty socks or something. Yeah. And I said, I don't, I don't think our residents are going to be doing this.
Everybody's dirty laundry.
So I mean, we're good neighbors. I don't know if our neighbors are going to appreciate us putting our dirty socks on our perimeter. I mean, we're going to get involved. We'll get called out there to take the socks away. But you have some electric. It's called Night Eyes. It's
That sounded
actually.
really cool.
It's a sensor that when movement is sensed, a set of eyes. They're literally little red lights that come on that look like a predator's eyes. There are all kinds of recommendations. I don't think the commission wants me to go into from the DNR
Right.
that
Thanks for
involve
those
other
two.
wildlife, but
Would it make sense to do a pamphlet of?
Send out,
This
send
would
out a
what,
mailing.
deter
Can we
may-
do a
well-
mailing?
We could do whatever you like. Isn't that checklist and everything online already?
We'll just maybe put it online
Yeah.
and then have a stack of pamphlets at the
We
end.
have it already online, but we can send it out through an e-blast, we can send it out through a mailer if you'd like.
I don't think I need to
But
do a
it-
mailer, because
Okay.
that'll alert, I
Yeah.
don't know, that's expensive too.
Or we have a stack at our open house.
Yeah. We can have a sack at our open house.
Yeah.
Would
I
you
know
be
we-
willing to dress up like a coyote at the open house?
That's probably not good.
I don't know. No, you know, we could have, you know, we have plans to do community engagement with our you know, with our citizens. Is this a conversation that we want to have? You know, we want to invite individuals in to talk about this. If there's a concern, we want to address it. You know, that's what we want to do. A lot of it is a lot of misconceptions on people about what these animals are, what they can do, what they will do, what they're being told. You know, one gentleman walked out, saw, recently, I think it was 2 days ago, saw two coyotes, in a yard next door. They were running. He thought, his perspective was the coyotes were coming at him. They were just cutting from one wooded area across to the next wooded area. Went in the house, was scared, rightfully so, because he had children with him. Came back out, realized what it was, and, you know, said, no, you guys don't need to come. We responded anyway. And that's a lot of times what it is. We talk about the animals. We talk about, you know, taking some protective steps, especially with animals. I mean, that is something I've seen throughout my career. If there's a small animal out there and it's unprotected, it's very, very, very vulnerable. So
How small is small?
smaller than a coyote. Coyotes are typically 25 to 30 pounds, maybe a hefty one. But coyotes are a pack animal. So you might have 2 or 3 and they'll take down a deer, you know. But every time I've seen them do that, the deer was already injured. It was already suffering. And they're scavengers. They really are. They rarely hunt things even common to their size or equal to their size. They're not out trying to take down a 25, 30-pound dog unless it's a unique circumstance. There's a pack against that dog. I myself have a shepherd, and there were coyotes in my backyard, and the shepherd barked, and they all took off. And, you know, it's fenced and things, but it's just what it is. They were out in the back field where they could see it, and she could see them. And she wanted to fight and do everything, you know, until they got close. And she barked, they luckily ran off.
I will say too, I think it's like the deer, because I've had 2 personal incidents with coyotes, and the deer, there's so many of them now, and they're just so used to us. I mean, they'll just stand there, and when I'm walking by and they're on the side of the road, they're like hissing at me, like, you
There
know.
were 2 standing right between my 2 cars, right in front of my front door, and I couldn't get to either car.
Yeah, they're so used to us.
Yeah, and
So I think the coyotes are the same way, because I've had 2 incidences. One was with my husband, who was outside with the dog, sitting on the patio. The dog was sitting like right next to him in the yard. And that coyote just kept walking up, sat down, walking up, sat down. My husband was right there, and he's like this. Coyote didn't care. He was like, you know, and he got up. My husband physically had to get out of the chair and go run and go like that to get the coyote to walk back into the woods. You know, but he was there to get the dog. And then recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I texted you the picture of it. This coyote, there was 2 families, the people across the street and us. This coyote just sat in the street, kind of looking around, you know, looking at, and our dog was luckily in the house, but,
Unfortunate,
you know, and so I think they're getting used to us, which I think is
really a problem.
right,
Yeah.
problem. And then my last comment is this, maybe for people who are listening, or what you can say as a recommendation. We actually have a Rudgate Dog Owner Association text. We have 15 people on it. They're residents who, in our area, have dogs, and they all are concerned about it. And it's not an everyday, it's not whatever, but when there's a coyote, they'll say, coyote is on Rudgate, coyote is on
We have a
Bennington.
text chain too.
Yeah, so that is a really effective way to tell people to warn them of the coyotes. So that's just my recommendation.
And I want to reiterate, the residents should call us. there is not, it's situationally based, what we can do. If we were to get out there and there was to be a coyote that was, say, rabid, and it wasn't fleeing, we would euthanize that coyote. If there was a coyote out there that was stalking or menacing, we would act appropriately. If the coyote's gone by the time we get out there, we're still interested in giving us a call, because like with any situation, we would rather be there and not be needed than be needed and somebody then responding to run back in the house and call us. Our response times, one thing, I am very proud of, our response times are under a second, or I'm sorry, under a minute here. I'm not under a second. I was gonna say, yeah. They're very, very quick. You have the officers out there driving around. Somebody calls us, we're there approximately 50 to 60, under the 60 seconds, but 50, 52, 54, 63. Those are our times. We monitor those every month. And we want to know when citizens call, we're there. Is it going to be a situation where the person's out walking, they don't have their phone and they call us? But they should absolutely call us. And then with some of this information, we can give them some pointers. There's nothing wrong. They sell it. It's a collapsible walking stick, and it's specifically for this. It's specifically for animals that are menacing. It's kind of a walking stick that you would see that kind of mirrors what outdoor hikers use. They're kind of like balancing sticks with grips. What they have is they have a little thing of pepper spray in them in the handle, and then they have a collapsible extension like our asps that you can keep something back if it was to menace you. So those are some of the things we can talk about. Do we want people carrying knives around and everything? No, not necessarily, but these are things that are out there that, based on the research, we can inform our
Maybe we could put it on the pamphlet.
They don't like noise either, I heard, because I don't go out with my dog at night, and, keeping our dogs in the house is not exactly, that can't happen. So they gotta do their night business, and I wear a whistle.
Yep.
I won't go outside without that whistle at night.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Their recommendation is a tin can with rocks in it. The cheap, effective type,
Okay,
right?
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Commission will now hear city manager's comments. Please. Thank you, Dave.
And I thought we have a budget.
Oh, wait,
budget
we've got a
amendment.
big budget thing, sorry. I was wishful thinking, we're that close. Okay. The commission will consider a budget amendment for fiscal year 24, 25.
Yep, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, each June, I make sure we do a full analysis of all of our funds that we budget for, which is no exception this year. And I'm happy to report that none of our funds need a budget amendment, with the exception of the capital improvement. So with the capital improvement fund, it is mainly funded by a transfer from the general fund. So there, if you look at the budget amendment that's being requested, there is $25,000 being transferred, but there's no effect to the general fund because the DPW department had an excess of $25,000. So it's a net zero to the general fund. It gets transferred to capital improvement, and that is to cover the overages for the salt building that has been previously discussed. So that is all that we need for this year.
So what did we budget for the building?
Originally, I made a recommendation to budget for $100,000 for that building. I was not accurate because it's not a pole barn. It's a pretty substantial building, and the design of it was much more than I thought, the structure of it. And so, that was absolutely my mistake. But
Thank you for saying, is there a way in the future that we could get a proposal and get bids before we put something like that in the budget?
yeah, so I think we discussed this in the budget meeting. I think or the budget discussions recently. What I could do is we could have our engineers, pay our engineers early to provide the design.
We could also get bids from builders and engineers and what it costs. I think in the future, it's be more.
I think the net result was, though, is that even though it was more than you estimated that the cost of the structure was quite a bit less than it would have been having to go through external sources. for
Yeah,
some of that, 'cause
we
I think
tried-
we managed a lot of that.
We checked a couple different companies and a couple that are in the city do a lot of work. And we were probably, I mean, maybe it's about $150,000 less, that, you know, we probably saved about $150,000 by me managing it.
How much was the total at the end?
About $200,000 building, I think.
And how did we only do that with a 25,000? Where did the other 75 come from?
Yeah, so, there was unexpected revenue, so we had a grant that came through, and we had, some sale of assets. We sold one of our police vehicles and some fire equipment, I think hoses, a few insurance claims that came through. So those are things we don't budget for, so those were revenues that were, part of the budget. And then we also had some unfulfilled purchases, this year, and then some other items that came under budget. So collectively, with all of that, and then the $25,000 transfer, gives us enough funds to cover the
So we did
overage.
not purchase some things in order to cover this?
We did not, it wasn't like an intentional thing, it just, we didn't purchase them.
We didn't purchase it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we at risk at all of using those grant funds for something like this? I mean, normally grant funds say you gotta use it for X, Y, Z, and you can't use it for anything else.
So we did make the purchase. We weren't expecting to get a grant. This was a RAP grant for the Public Safety Department for cameras and the gate lock. MMRMA had said that they were no longer going to cover those types of grants, but we submitted it anyway with an argument of it would prevent, theft. And I think Dave reported this in one of his weekly reports that we did indeed receive it.
That's
So we
great.
did already make the expense, but the revenue wasn't part of the budget,
Okay.
and now it's available for other, for the.
One of the purchases you mentioned you didn't make was an intersection camera for Long Lake and Woodward.
Yeah, that was originally.
And we've all been
just-
pushing for some kind of traffic assessment, and
Yeah.
I could comment on that.
I'd love to know why we
Yeah.
didn't buy that.
So we had a $50,000 budget item to purchase cameras at Long Lake and Woodward. And so we were working to get that done. We had a lot of roadblocks. Actually, the chief and one of his captains and I have been working on it. And so we were gonna try to put the cameras in the Oakland County right away, but this would not cover the area. We tried to do it in the MDOT right away. And we've got a lot of pushback from MDOT. We got a lot of pushback from contractors wanting to deal with the permits to do that. And we just could not get this done in recent months. So, yeah, I decided we're gonna push this off until we get this plan better. And actually, there's a couple of things that I was concerned about too. Is there's a grant out there to provide a crosswalk through the median because of the bus stops. There's also some additional grants out there. My intention is to pursue a grant to see if we can't pay for this through a grant, and then have a better idea on how to install these cameras with the permission of MDOT, because I believe that's where they need to be. There's a lot, there's a long explanation that I could give you. We actually tried to look at private buildings, we looked at the Oakland County right-of-ways, we did a lot of research and an effort in this, but, yeah, we're not able to get this done at this point. And I think, it made me think, we have this potential construction that's gonna go on in this median, and also, there's a couple of grants out there that I wanna try to pursue to see if there's a potential. So we wouldn't be in a situation like with the RAP grant where we made the purchase and then all of a sudden we got a grant. And so, I'm gonna try that, but that's why, it's just something that we haven't got done, but, yeah.
Could that recent motorcycle accident help the cause for needing a grant and needing cameras and?
Yeah, sure, yes. That's a good point. There's a SEMCOG grant that I think could be potentially helpful, and MMRMA grant that could potentially be helpful, and so we've been in communication about it, but That's the
So we're
reason.
still pursuing the idea.
Oh, absolutely.
Great.
But what we would do, so what I said is, as far as the money in the capital expenditure fund, is we're not gonna get this done before June 30th, so put that money back into the general fund. I will go to the commission, in the future and ask for a budget amendment, so we can pull the money back out. That, in my opinion, with managing the budget, that's the appropriate way to do it. But, we have every intention to get this done. We don't wanna do it haphazardly, we wanna do it the right way.
So I have a question. I just have been noticing cameras because I know of the Woodward. Like, there are cameras all over the intersection of Lasser and Horton. That little intersection right there. Who puts those cameras up there? They're pretty sophisticated.
Oakland
Yeah.
County,
So why would not Oakland County put one at Woodward and Long Lake? That intersection is very dangerous.
I think there are cameras there for traffic. There's cameras there for traffic.
Oh, but we don't have access to it.
No,
Oh, that's theirs. So this
they're
would give
cameras
us
and they
ours.
use it to time the lights and they use it to monitor the traffic. But the cameras that we want is more about the whole intersections and not just the, right at the light and to monitor.
It's the whole
vehicles.
intersection.
Yeah, we're looking at it from a broader perspective. Chief, did you have something to say? Yeah.
So part of this program was given to me by the CM, and we are pursuing it. We wanted to look at all the things like just when we were asking questions and doing research, we were told, oh, you better be careful of the Metro Act and things like that. So we would kind of vet those things with, do we want to do remote cameras? Do we want this to be an eyesore for the community? What we kind of came up with was our median, those black brass-like poles or wrought iron poles that we have up and down the median is maybe mounting something like that so it blends with the median as opposed to standing out in something that is very obvious there. So we looked at remote cameras, what kind of cameras. We got 3 bids for the cameras to do remote into our dispatch center so we could monitor them 24/7, and that took a long time to get those 3 bids. We were chasing people, and we dealt with responses like, well, the tariffs are coming in, so we need you to order now, or you're gonna miss out. We can't guarantee pricing. So there were some games being played with us. We did do a good faith effort to try to get it done, but we wanted to do tonight. We didn't want to mount it on an existing building or structure like the gas station or Brewer's Bagels, trying to get it the right elevation, the right perspective, so it would be effective and not be offensive to the eye of our community.
So, because the camera, I've had a personal experience with that intersection, exactly, traveling eastbound, because when you're traveling south on Woodward, there's that stop from, that turnaround, just north of. There's a light there, and I cannot tell you how many times you travel that southbound, and I watch people, they stop at that one, and they don't want to stop again when they get to Long Lake, so they gun it when they get to gun, and it's just, so if we can do anything to have, some kind of proof that that is happening at that intersection, I'm surprised there are not more accidents there. I think it's a very dangerous intersection.
And is the purpose of the camera to see those kinds of things?
Yeah,
Or
what is
is it for monitoring traffic and assisting with the lights and timing the lights so that?
Assisting public safety with the intersection. One of the things about that intersection that's very challenging to us is when we code to a situation where we're lights and sirens, depending on what kind of situation it is, to have that intelligence when we're leaving the station and dispatch can say the light is this, or give that information, public safety, people crossing the roadways there, we're trying to get that information, and we're trying to get all of it in like we said, a comprehensive package that can stay up there, that doesn't look offensive, where we're getting a lot of people calling about what it is. We'll get the calls that if it looks too close to like the flock systems, we don't want it to look like that. Those are the plate readers. We're getting a lot of calls on that. We get calls on other communities, flock systems and things like that. So we're trying to take that kind of a perspective or approach to it, where it doesn't cause any kind of concern to our community. It looks good, it accomplishes our goals, and it gives us the information. Not
How
only
about a
on-
sign with the crest saying the police department is here? No, I'm just-
Well, I think, Dave, thanks for looking into that. Any kind of grant you can get or camera for that intersection to help is.
Yeah, I,
something
you know,
should
we,
do.
I know that was important to the commission. Apologize if we didn't get it done, but we are, it's not, we're not trying. It just, sometimes you run into these things. One of the things that, the chief, I didn't mention, the chief didn't mention, is that MDOT is completely, they do not want us to use any of their poles, any of their,
Oh,
Yeah.
we
that's
cannot,
fine.
they will not allow it. So
We
we,
have to have a
so
separate.
then we have to kind of, we've had to change gears so many times with this. Well, we don't want, we want to make sure that the cameras are really useful for the dispatcher. Cameras that can be turned and, you know, and you can see every point of the intersection. It is the biggest intersection of the city, and we want to know, what if someone fell down? You know, and you can't, sometimes you can't even see it because of the terrain.
Right.
You want to make sure that, or someone got hit on a bike or fell off their bike, or cars that are, maybe, cars that are out of service, and we can immediately respond to it.
Well, you'll have the crosswalk poles, and is that what you're expecting to put the cameras on?
Well, to be honest with you, there's a big grant for the crosswalk. I mean,
Yeah.
a large grant.
They said they've allocated the money though already. I don't know what that means.
Right, and so, and it was a lot of money. I
A
forget.
million,
It
they
was a
said.
million, so
That's what she
I thought
said.
we could try to tap into one of these grants. We've been very successful with grants. We just got another one this last week. We've been very successful with grants.
That's awesome.
So we thought we'd try that.
Okay. Well, we got off course, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget amendment for the 2024-2025 as presented by the treasurer in the memorandum for the fiscal year budget amendment. Is that good?
Thank you.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Great, thank you. Thank you, Sandra. Now we will hear the city manager's comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I wanted to mention that we're going to be starting the Pembroke project, where we're going to be compacting the road between Vaughan and Country Club, and then putting a chip seal over top of that. We sent letters out today, or actually dropped them out today, to each resident in the two streets, I believe, so they understand what's happening. But we're going to be grading and compacting the road Thursday. We're starting, I think it's gonna take 2 days. And in the next week or two, we're gonna be providing the chip seal, or applying the chip seal, and that takes only 1 day, and you can drive on it minutes or moments after it's done. So if your constituents mention something, and that's what we're doing with it.
So you're starting tomorrow and you'll be done?
Starting tomorrow, starting Thursday, not tomorrow, but Thursday, just to grade and compact it. That's the first step. And then we'll
Okay.
have people drive on it for a while, and then we're gonna do the chip seal. We have to get that done before June 30th because of the budget.
Okay.
I want to mention that. I wanted to mention that I was unsure how long this meeting would take, so there's a couple of things. I know the sanitary sewer lining, that's going to be at the July meeting. We had three bids. And then I asked, maybe it's four, I asked Leah to do a little bit more research on it, just a little more references, because there was a couple of prices that were close, and so we're doing some work on that. We'll bring that to you in July. And that's for a $1.2 million project, I believe, right? Yes. I also wanted to, one of the things I promised the commission is to bring the zoning code structural kind of overhaul program to you, and we did receive 3 bids on that. And my plan today was to bring 2 of the bids that we would recommend, and have the commission review the presentation. So we're gonna have both provide a presentation to you. And then we've decided as an administration not to provide a recommendation, because we believe both those out of the 3 could do the job. And so we just want the city commission to look at it and make your own decision of what you think is appropriate. The costs are very similar, but the platforms are a little bit different. One's a PDF and one's a cloud-based, which I like, but we're gonna have those two presentations, and I was a little worried about the time, because I think both of them will probably wanna give a 15-20-minute presentation, and you would ask questions.
Thank you.
Delaying that.
And so that is what we thought. We had our staff look at both of them. There's just such a mixture, and I just didn't want, Amy and I decided we're provide a recommendation.
Are those two in addition to the one we already?
So there's like two main ways to do it. One's a PDF process, and one's a cloud. The cloud-based provides a lot more information, potential information. The PDF is very simple, and the third bid was it was a PDF, provided about the same amount of options, but it was a little more expensive. So we cut it down to two for you folks to review, and yeah, does that answer your question?
Well, wasn't it Giffords that?
Yeah, Giffords. So Giffords, clear zoning, and then there's a company out of Texas, it's called Encode.
So
And-
those are the two.
Oh,
Yeah, and they're all around the country, Encode. So,
Yeah, I heard.
yeah, and they both, I think, would do the job.
Thank you. Anything else?
Let me see, anything else? No, that's it.
Thank you. Commission will consider any other business.
I know it's getting late, but I did have another show and tell session, follow up to some of the questions that came up about the signs last meeting. And I brought in some samples that you can take a look at. You don't have to spend a ton of time, but I just thought you should take a look and get your thoughts on two things. One, I'm gonna just go grab one. One is color of the text, and then I picked out 4 new fonts that are a simple design. I think simple is better. And then also the signs, these are 30 inches long, the previous were 36. I'm gonna just make these changes here.
Wow, that is dark.
Yeah, it's hard
Wow.
to read. Those are hard to read.
That's definitely difficult.
This month we're featuring Redgate.
For no particular reason?
Wow, okay.
That
So
colors.
I had this one made to kind of contrast. So this is the lightest gold, and I'm not sure if it's the beads. The beads have some effect on it. And this is the darkest, I believe. So it kind of ends up looking a little bit brown.
Yeah, it's brown.
I think from a readability standpoint, this yellow, which kind of matches everything that's already out there, it's probably the easiest to read.
I didn't realize it was that dark.
And as far as fonts, I think that, and then this is just my personal opinion, I think that this and this are probably
Yes.
more pleasing to look at versus the others, which are great for maybe other purposes, but they're just too blocky, I think. I think the thing I want to stress here, and it's important to understand that these can be any font we want. The choices are unlimited, and colors of the text are somewhat unlimited as well. So don't get caught up in thinking we have to pick this or that. But I think we're on 8 versions now of this. So I just wanted to present it, get your thoughts. I think I'm going to leave these here. So if anybody wants to come and grab them, take them out to their neighborhood, put them up, see what they look like, you can do that. But I'd like to kind of come to some kind of decision maybe next month or the month after. Because what we decide would be great was, for the long term and consistent, so that whatever we decide we want to do is going to stick. So that's all. I just wanted to bring these in.
Well, we really appreciate all the effort you've gone to and all the samples they've made for us and adding the beads for flexibility. Would it be possible to have more of the dirt roads with the wood signs and possibly keep the metal for the paved roads, or is that are we all, I mean, I guess we should all talk about it, but, unfortunately, my neighborhood didn't care for the wood sign, and they thought it was too big and too, loud. Maybe people are used to the metal signs, so they're, change it, if it's not broken, but the metal signs.
Replace what's out there, so plank signs that already exist, they can be replaced by this.
So you don't need new poles?
No,
Oh, okay.
But if there's a metal sign that we're replacing, we need a new pole. And are we doing finials? Is the look right with the wood?
from what, I mean, Dave can probably answer this better, but from what I've seen, the metal signs go up without finials.
Our whole neighborhood's finials, Redgate's finials.
That's an individual tool to make each metal sign. With that, it's one machine, it cuts it, it doesn't matter what it is, what the font is, what the size is, it doesn't care. It's relatively inexpensive. So, I'm not saying that metal replacement that would mimic or match the old style is not possible. It's just, I think it's a lot more complicated.
Well, I did talk to a metal sign company that we talked to like 6 months, like a while ago, because we did have metal signs that we were trying to, and they don't engrave them like the 1920s, like you're saying, and they just put a vinyl word on it, and then they wrap it to protect it from the weather. So if it
Yeah,
fails,
well,
it's not expensive to
sure.
fix or replace either, but you have the metal
Sure.
that has the integrity all these years.
Dave, that's the book I dropped off a long time ago to you guys last
Yeah.
July. It's the company over in West Michigan you talked about? Yeah.
Mhm.
You got and I have the PDF still. I found it old when Dave dropped off the sign at my house. I racked my brain about where we were a year ago, and I do have the PDF, online version of it. But I think I dropped off of the hand version to you, actual physical book.
I contacted them, and I wish I'll try to find the email, but I wish I could recall the cost, but my recollection, it was pretty costly, for each sign, but I could find out what that cost is and then send it to you.
I'd like to know that, but I'd also like to take one of these to show neighbors and just get their thought. But I'd also like to know, because it's wood and it's outside. That's what I'm only worried about, the warping of it. And I'd like to know what they think. Is it treated wood? Is it?
Well, these are oak, but you can get any kind of wood you want.
I'm not a wood expert. You know what's better.
David, do you recall what you paid for the metal when you did? I know you've got some that are metal, and obviously we know a little bit. We won't know more about these, but do you know offhand what you paid?
What's $70?
So similar price.
Yes.
Similar price.
You're talking about these, the ones that you're putting up now, right?
Yes.
No finials, no nothing.
Right.
They're $70.
Yes.
Okay.
But see the difference in size? That's concerning.
Yeah, but
This was the old one.
that's what I'm saying.
These are 3 feet.
You can make that
Yeah.
as tiny as you want. I just made them based on
Right.
what I thought you would be able to see. Now, if everybody thinks that they should be, an inch shorter, that can be done. We can make it look just like the stickers. Like I said, anything is possible. You can do it half as tall as those letters are, if that's what we deem to be, attractive. So
Dave, don't we have the Pantone color for the city?
that's what.
And that's what
he
they
has
are.
on there.
those dark
That's what yellow
colors.
is?
No,
Yeah,
yellow
he
is
had-
not.
He had 3 of the Pantones. There's,
Well, give me 4.
I think there might be 4.
I took the
Pantones.
lightest one and the darkest one.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
what those are?
Mhm.
Okay, all four.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Pantones are what we provide to folks that want to make signs and get them approved
Mhm.
for their businesses. But it doesn't work too well with the wooden signs, I don't think.
So Brian, the signs out throughout the city are much more legible than this brown. Would you agree? You probably couldn't see the sign, but.
Most of the signs in the city have Pantone color.
They have to be, right? Yeah.
But you're saying we have 4 Pantone yellow colors.
Well, not the street
gold.
signs. The street signs are
Not the
not.
street signs, no,
Yeah.
just the
That's my point, that was just for his signs for commercial buildings and what mainly.
Right,
And
right.
so, I maybe I mistakenly mentioned the Pantone color and provided it to Commissioner Baxter. But, yeah, it's different. The street signs have to be really legible, and that really made me see that those Pantone colors do not work.
Maybe there's something in between the bright yellow and the Pantone.
Yeah, it
Something
was-
closer to our gold, but still legible.
So that's not our Pantone?
No,
That's yellow.
that's yellow.
No, not this Trowbridge one, this Bennington one that's up there right now.
No.
That's just
Yeah, we didn't follow the guidance of the Pantone colors for the street signs because, well, now I can see, you can't really see it. But I think it's mostly why they did that.
When you leave tonight, your city sign, your out front, your monument sign, use the Pantone color.
Thank you.
Is there a timeline that we're working towards to make a decision on what we want to do in terms of whether it's what material and size and scale? I know you've gone to some trouble to create kind of like a stencil format so we can always reference it, which I think is great. I suppose my only thought is it'd be nice to have a metal representative. Maybe it's the one you had before, but instead of with a decal, with an enameled paint, something that's, the black can be black, but an enameled lettering as opposed to the plastic adhesive lettering. And then look at prices and figure out what we think is most suitable for the city.
Yeah, I just had to understand as far as the metal, if it's the metal that we've been using recently or if it's more like a detail from that company. I'll look that up and then ship
I'll
that
send
around.
you, I'll
With
send
the
it to you
cost.
tomorrow
Oh.
too, okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
There was, I think there was a little bit of a concern with, or I mean, I should say that I think the idea was to give the staff direction, because we're just gonna replace them here and there. And so
right, we're not.
there's a cost, I mean, there's cost consideration. It's just, if we're gonna replace 5 here and 10 there, or whatever the case may be, it could get costly if it's, depending on the cost of the sign.
I thought we were gonna replace them
This is a
just
huge part of
as
the
we
image of our
were,
city.
right? Is that your intent?
I'm sorry, what?
Was your intent to replace them all at once or just as we were replacing signs?
It's not so much what I want, it was really, it came up as a kind of a question about signs that are failing out there, that are hard to read, the letters are falling off. There's a fair number of them that need
Oh, yeah,
replacement.
yeah.
Right,
And a lot of them happen to be these planks. And
Mhm.
so my suggestion was, and this was just a suggestion, was if they're already plank signs, why don't we replace them with plank signs? And if we're going to make a plank sign, why don't we make it so that we can actually see it and it's going to be reflective. And I found a company that can make them. The glass beads thing is it's a common thing.
Really clever,
For
yeah.
well, it's commonly used for all kinds of like lane markings and things like that. And they do that. That's not me. They do it all for $100 per sign. So I thought it was, and the other goal was to make it easy for the city, so they can just order it. It shows up in a couple of weeks. They can take it out, put it up.
I think as a commission, we need to decide, are we replacing plank ones with plank ones and have a metal version for all the metal version, ones that are already metal right now? And
Well,
we've gotta make
once-
sure we can put this on the post, because
Yeah.
that gets very involved when you're doing the post, finial or whatever, if you have to do the whole mechanism and bury it
And
and,
one thing you'll notice, if you look around, you'll see some of the old metal signs, when the metal signs failed, or maybe the paint wore off of them, they were replaced with planks. So the metal bracketry is the same, the finial is there, the bracket on top and below is the same. They just put a plank in place of it because you had to fill that thickness that the two signs back to back created.
Oh,
Yeah,
So-
you're right.
so the
I agree with
wood-
you.
So the wood planks were used to replace the metal signs that failed, and because they filled that gap. And those are the planks with the vinyl letters, and so the thought was, well, if we're gonna, if they're failing and we need to replace them, they're already planks, we can put a plank like that in to replace it, which looks really nice, I think, but, finding the metal sign replacements that would fit in those old brackets, I'm sure it can be done, I'm just not sure at what expense.
Right.
But I'd also like to make sure
Sure,
that
that's all right.
these
Right.
could be put on the existing posts too. I mean, if we're starting from scratch either way, let's compare apples to
Well,
apples.
these
Well,
are,
here's
that's
a-
an
here's a-
example of
The old wood
the
one.
existing bracketry with the wood, which is what Brad's referring to.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have to find the brackets, with the finial, because not all those wood signs have that.
Right.
No, they're all
And-
different.
And a lot of the metal signs that have gone up more recently, they don't have any of that anyway, so. These are flexible though, I mean, if you wanna put one up without the finial, that's what we did in, Trowbridge, just as the test. You can do that too, it doesn't require bracketry or finials to put it up.
Right.
I could be wrong, but I thought the metal signs that you had sent me is somewhere between $500 and $100 or $1,000 or something. I remember it's very expensive. But I'll get
That's
that
probably
information.
including the pole and.
That was including the pole too. That was everything, yeah.
Could be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
So,
Because here's the problem though, like, with the metal, like, if this one fails right here, that's a really thin bracket, so we would, if we replaced it with a wood one,
Well, that bracketry has to change on, that's brand new, so that was designed to fit the metal. I'm talking about the old signs that
right, but
were
most
designed
of the
for.
signs in Runket are like, it's
yeah,
like
this is
they're
what
all
most
different
of all,
kinds
everything now is replaced like this.
Yeah.
Everything today
Well,
is
those
replaced
don't
like
need
this.
replacing, do they?
Well, no, because
This
they're
isn't
all
a-
new.
This isn't about a wholesale replacement program.
No.
This was originally just to, when a sign fails and we need
Have
a
an option.
replacement, we have a plank that we can replace it with.
But I'd kind of like to have, I mean, I don't want to do it all at once. I 100% agree
I
with
think
that.
we all agree on that.
Yeah, but it would be nice to be able to eventually have them all the same.
Well, that was kind of the idea, is find something that as we replace, we like, that is of a quality that we all kind of agree on, that is matching character. of
But
everything
maybe
else.
on this one, like with these people, like maybe it's just a matter of replacing this, the bracket here with a bracket that fits that sign.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So don't change the pole or anything like that, but change this bracket to fit the sign.
Yeah, that's pretty easy. Okay. Yeah. You wouldn't have to.
But I'd like to, so we can compare apples to apples, find out what those brackets are that we need, what's it gonna take to mount one of those, so.
We've had some
Unless you just wanna
challenges.
compare a metal blade to a wooden.
Well,
sign.
we've had some trouble finding the brackets that would fit that with a finial.
The wood?
We're still, yes, we're still looking.
Okay,
It's been challenging to find the brackets for that.
so we need to get that whole package,
Yeah.
I mean, before we.
I'm interested in
let's move
changing and
forward.
doing something.
Yeah.
I like the concept and to look into it, yeah.
I agree. No, first of all, thank you, Brad, for taking
Yes,
the
thank you
lead
very
on
much.
this.
We needed you to
I
push
mean,
us forward.
so, this is better, what you proposed.
Oh, yeah.
And
Way
and
better.
I'm gonna repeat myself, but it'd be nice, whatever we decide to do, it's just, that's the fix going forward, there's a drawing to it, it's really terrific, and then you have one style that eventually becomes uniform. I mean, that would be
Yeah.
nice. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm gonna leave these here at the city, and if any of you want to take them and,
Yeah, that'd be great.
check them out, do that. The other 4 are back there as well. I'm gonna leave those from the last meeting. I'll leave those here as well, so
Thank you.
we don't have to keep taking them back and forth.
Thanks for all that. You put a lot of effort and resources too. Thank you for that.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I always say this is, ideas and talk is cheap. You gotta, execution is the hard part, so.
It is.
When we talk about different concepts, just keep that in mind. It's one thing to talk about it or to have an idea, it's another to actually put it into motion, to make it happen, so.
Right.
You've gotta have something that's, doable.
Right.
So let's go the next step with these in terms of seeing if they can be attached to the existing poles, get finials and brackets, and we'll check out the metal version as well. Great,
Yes.
thank you. Anything else, Dave? Anything else? Any other business?
No,
Great, if there's no further business, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn?
Great. The city council meeting's adjourned. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, July 8th, 2025. Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.